Hey, what's up, guys? It's Foster from Inglês no. This is part 2 of an interview with Seth Kugel. Seth is a former New York Times columnist. He is a writer, a traveler, a YouTuber, and author. He is many things, a fascinating guy. So I recommend if you have not listened to part 1, please start there. Also, this episode is brought to you by italki. italki is a platform that connects students with native teachers. To really learn a language, you have to have conversations. A great place to do that is on italki. And a special discount for our listeners if you use the code Inglês no at checkout or just click the link in the show notes. You will get your first class for free at italki.com. Okay, on with the show. Oi, fala aí pessoal, bom dia. Você está escutando o Inglês no rádio. I am your host, Foster Hodge. This is your daily dose of English. So, Seth, you said one thing that Brazil is a great place to visit and maybe a more difficult place to live. You are living in Brazil right now, correct?
No, I'm not. I'm living part-time. I'm sort of spending a lot of time here because of a significant other. But I still live in New York, but I do spend enough time here that it does weigh on me a little bit.
Yeah.
The way things don't really work very well and the way things are frustrating and take a long time and are sort of incomprehensible, and that the government is just wasting money left and right, and the constant drumbeat of corruption
Yeah.
and
Are you talking about Brazil or the US?
oh well, it's interesting. I mean, people here do somehow think that the United States is perfect, and that all laws are enforced and that justice works perfectly. And of course, that's definitely not true.
No.
But it is a discernible difference,
Yeah.
even at its worst. Even if you take something like police violence in the United States against people of color, Brazil has that 100 times worse.
Yeah. It's apples to oranges.
I always say the same thing. I always say, like, if you're a gringo and you say you love Brazil, then you definitely have not lived in Brazil. You can love the people, you can love the music, you can love the food, but the country as a whole, you have to have mixed feelings about it, like you do about every country, because it's a complex place. And you can't possibly love the efficiency of the government, for example.
Yeah.
That's just
I think it has to be a love-hate type of
yeah.
thing. And I think that's with every country in the world. That's a
Absolutely.
great point.
If you're French and you move to the United States, there are things that drive you crazy, and vice versa. It has nothing to do really with it being a richer or a poorer country, or anything. It's just a fact of countries are different, and moving from one to the other is always frustrating. And actually, that's what my channel is about. If I had to sum up Amigo Gringo in one phrase, it would be, cultural differences do not make you better or worse. They're just different. And you shouldn't criticize another culture for being different. You need to understand why they're different.
Preach. That's awesome.
I think that was 2
Yes.
sentences, by the way, but that.
Yeah, it could be a long fragmented sentence, but you got across your point very well.
Yeah.
So, are you in São Paulo right now, Seth?
I am in
Is that right?
Cuiabá, Mato Grosso.
Awesome. So a little bit, quote unquote, off the beaten path.
Well, if you want to come to the Pantanal, which everybody should visit, you either have to come through here or through Campo Grande in Mato Grosso do Sul. So, yeah, it's a little, but I will say it's a bit off the beaten path. The farofa is very good here because they make it with plantains, or they call them here bananas of the earth.
Yeah, bananas da terra. Yeah.
So I'm a huge plantain fan. I can't
Me
express
too.
how much I love plantains, and because I worked with people from the Caribbean for many years in New York, and in New York, where are you, by the way? Where am I talking to you?
I am currently in South Carolina, actually, for the first time in a while.
Well, it's plantains are everywhere in New York because Jamaicans and Cubans and Dominicans and so it's a part of the New York life. And then you go to Brazil, and most places don't use them. I know in Salvador they do, and in Mato Grosso, but a lot of places it's very hard to find a banana da terra. It's just there's a million kinds of bananas, like more kinds than
Hmm.
you ever would ever see in the U.S., but not the bananas da terra.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. For Americans, it's just bananas
Well,
in general.
and it's
Yeah.
because of this. I mean, everyone should look up, why Americans only have one kind of banana. It's all because of this great effort in I don't know when, beginning of the 20th century, the 19th century, to make a banana that could be imported from Central America
Yeah,
to the United
United Fruit.
States and last longer. Right? So. And most people think
Yeah.
a Banana Republic is a clothing store, but it's really what they used to call the countries that exported bananas to the United States.
Yeah,
I know you know
yeah.
that. I'm just
I know that. No, my mom tried to take me to a Banana Republic the other day, and I refused. Yeah. Cool. So, Seth, you have a new book coming out that I'm extremely interested in
yeah,
called Rediscovering
yeah,
Travel, a guide for the globally
yeah.
curious.
Yeah,
You want to talk about it a little bit?
yeah. Well, it's I for 5 years was a full-time travel writer for the New York Times, and you think maybe that being a travel writer just means going on vacation for 5 years, but it's actually you follow the travel industry. You see, and more than that, you watch travelers, you watch tourists, and most travelers get to travel like 2 weeks a year, 1 month a year if they're lucky, and they make a
Yeah.
lot of weird mistakes that are and if you watch them for 5 years, you begin to see patterns. Like being too dependent on TripAdvisor, for example, and even even using TripAdvisor in the wrong way. There's some very good ways to use it. Also, how people measure risk, like how dangerous traveling is. And most people
Yeah.
think that they should be scared of terrorism, but really, far more travelers die in car crashes than get killed by terrorists. So there's
Yeah.
all
Talk
kinds of
about traveling in Brazil.
oh,
Brazilians drive like crazy people.
right, and not
Yeah.
only that, but the inspections of cars. I don't know actually how they are in Brazil, but the most dangerous thing about driving in most places is that the truck that's driving next to you hasn't had its brakes checked ever.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's full of stories about the way the I don't just say those things. I tell stories about the way things got how I learned those things. There's a few stories in there about how I just got sick of like using guidebooks and TripAdvisor and everything. Everything in the world is so well documented. It's all online that I got sick of not discovering things anymore. It seemed like everywhere I went, I had already read about exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah. It's impossible to be surprised nowadays or delighted. Yeah.
So you're walking down the street and you see a restaurant and you're like, huh, let me look that up on TripAdvisor and see if it's good. And then you read everything about, you read 5 reviews and you already know everything about it. To me, just walk in, take a chance. Oh, the restaurant is full of people speaking Italian. It's probably pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's available, by the way. It's not published yet, but you can pre-order it on Amazon. Just look up "Rediscovering Travel."
Yes, we will put all the links in the show notes. Everyone should buy Seth's book and just start reading more in general. So, Seth, after you wrote this book, are you optimistic or hopeful about the future of travel? Because on one hand, I'm really like excited about Yeah, availability of travel for more people. And on the other hand, I'm just kind of worried that it's moving in the wrong direction in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, I think I agree with exactly what you're saying. Right now, if you go back 50 years, very, very, very few people traveled internationally. So the power of travel and just going to another country and just realizing what it means to be in another country. We were talking about this before. Really does
Yeah.
open your eyes to if I'm American and I go to France for the first time or to Brazil, I don't only learn about France or Brazil, but I learn a lot about the United States. You know, oh, I
Absolutely.
never realized we spoke really loudly and wore really ugly shorts. That's so in that sense, it's very positive. The Chinese are traveling a lot these days. The Brazilians for a while there, even middle class Brazilians were coming to the United States or even going to Europe. So that has
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be very positive. And honestly, there have always been travelers who just follow tour guides around, and that's basically the same thing as following TripAdvisor around. That and it's funny. I always tell people, like, if you just use TripAdvisor to figure out where you're going all the time, you might as well just hire a human guide to take you around. You're not being adventurous, really. In any case, but you're right. People are being
Yeah.
less adventurous, but not everybody. There's a lot of really good travelers out there, and I think that there's a bit of a backlash these days. That's a good word for your Brazilian listeners to learn. Backlash. I
Yes,
have no
a
idea what
backlash.
that is in Portuguese or if it exists.
Uh, yeah, I can't do that translation off the top of my head.
Uh,
But a backlash is something where people are kind of revolting against or responding against a negative trend,
right.
perhaps.
Or maybe it's something that seemed like a positive trend, but then it went so far that they revolt against it. But I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot of people who now are seeking out experiences like homestays, when you go live with a family, or even something like Airbnb, which is a company that I do not like. I did a video on this on Globally Curious. There's a good part of Airbnb, and that's when you stay with a real person who lives in a real place. Now, most of Airbnb is not necessarily that, but
Yeah.
that's a tool. Some of these tools for traveling are really, really great. Actually, even something like Uber is kind of, which another company which I dislike. But I have to admit, I have an older cousin who's visiting Rio, even as we speak. And I was worried about her. She doesn't speak any Portuguese. She's smart and she's traveled a lot in her life. But Brazil is tough. And how do you get around? Would I recommend she walk everywhere? Well, in Rio, I would not. Would I recommend she take the bus everywhere in Rio? No. Would I recommend she take
No.
taxis in Rio? There's so many taxi drivers that even if they're honest, they don't speak English. But look at
Yeah.
Uber. For Uber, you just put in the address where you're going. You find the guy comes and he takes you to that address, and you can try to chat with him, but you don't even need to speak the language. So that's a great tool to make people more willing to explore, even though the people who run Uber are a bunch of capitalist scumbags. But that's neither here
Yeah.
nor there.
Feel free to curse on this. Yeah, they're assholes.
But you have to. I believe I wish I were a cool enough guy that I would just boycott every company that does anything bad. But I'd be living on a farm somewhere, and I couldn't even grow anything
Yeah.
on my farm because I wouldn't be pesticides.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing that all of these technologies are kind of a double-edged sword, if you will, that
I mean,
I mean, they're all powerful tools, but they can be used for good or bad.
it really just bothers me, and I guess I never realized this before, and it's been going on my whole life. But once the company gets to a certain size and begins to think about going public and selling to investors, or even before that, they're looking for $1 billion investment. Well, they have to. There's one thing they have to prove, that they can grow and make money. and they can't do that without really trying to make money.
Yeah. Seth, I know you're a very, very busy man, but I just wanted to ask you, Seth, you have time for a quick lightning round?
Sure.
Okay, I'm making these up off the top of my head,
Yeah.
so they might be terrible.
Farofa.
Favorite food?
Farofa.
Awesome.
Was that the question?
Favorite food in Brazil?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was
I think you got it.
easy.
Okay. Yeah, if you just want to say things without me asking the question, that might even be better. um,
Roraima. That's the answer to where was a picture of your family stolen and posted on a billboard?
wow.
Someone took a
What?
picture, a Thanksgiving portrait of my family, my parents, my brother, and made it into a billboard ad in Boa Vista, Roraima.
Wow. That's
Anyway,
insane.
next question. I'll actually listen this time.
um, how about favorite borough in New York?
Oh, I mean, well, that's actually, I live in Queens, and I
Hmm.
do believe, having lived in New York on and off for more than 20 years, Queens and the Bronx are the two boroughs of New York that still retain some of the real international immigrant, hardworking street life atmosphere of New York when I arrived in the 1990s. Brooklyn and Manhattan are fantastic. There's so much there, and there's so much to do, and actually, the best restaurants are there. But they do, because of gentrification and because of a lot of just how difficult it is to make money and how high the rents are. It's become kind of a little bit like one big shopping.
Yeah,
Manhattan especially,
they've changed.
and there's still
Yeah.
so many neighborhoods in Queens and the Bronx that are just like regular neighborhoods with regular people, except that they're from a ton of different countries. So, but I'm generalizing, parts of Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn are like that as
Of course. Yeah. Where do you live in Queens?
well.
Jackson
Yes,
Heights?
Jackson Heights, which is the ultimate diverse neighborhood. It's many Colombians and Peruvians and Mexicans, many Indians and Pakistanis, many Thai and Asian people. I like to amaze people by saying that my subway stop in Queens is within 3 blocks of 14 Tibetan restaurants. Tibetano, okay? Restaurante Tibetano.
Mhm.
That's just amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've heard several people say that Jackson Heights is like per capita the most diverse place in the world. I don't know how that's measured,
Well,
but it sounds good.
I mean, I think that in the United States, there's very few places like it. I think there probably are a few neighborhoods like that, but because New York is so densely populated, you can have many, many groups living near each other. So we have a big Colombian community and a big Bangladeshi community, and they're all like in the same few blocks. So that's one thing. The other thing is, where is there a more diverse place in the world? So if it's the most diverse neighborhood in the U.S., then it probably, unless there's someplace in London,
I mean, it's got to be up
it's
there.
got to be up there. It's really great, and it's even in guidebooks these days. I mean, it's like page 290 or something. But taking a walking tour, like just walking around Jackson Heights, is amazing. By the way, you personally, not your listeners, are invited on a tour of Jackson Heights if you come to New York. I give a very good tour.
Awesome.
But I have
Thank
video. I
you.
have a video about Jackson Heights also on Amigo Gringo. So anyway, that was not a speed round, but
No, but that was very informative. So, how about what is one city, let's say, favorite city in Brazil, barring any big cities? So,
yeah.
a city that someone's not imagining.
Yeah, I don't. Well, maybe not a city, but it's kind of just like any little city in the interior of Minas Gerais is good for me.
Agreed.
Yeah, I have
Totally.
an activity that I do there where just a random time I just say I'm going to find the guy who sells homemade cachaça to the rest of town, because there's always a guy or a family, and you just ask around, and you don't have to ask too many people, and then you find out where this family's house is, and you go there, and you're just like, hey, do you have any cachaça to buy? And I've done it 3 times in my life, but it's always been a fun adventure, and I've always ended up with cachaça, which I'm sure is legal to sell, but you know,
No, that's a great activity. Got to do that one day.
yeah,
Yeah, I was going to try to give you some controversial lightning round questions, but I won't force you to do that. So,
sure, whatever.
Seth, where can people find you? Where can people learn more about your channel, your book, anything you want?
Amigo Gringo is the channel. You just put it into YouTube and it'll come right out. The English language channel is called Globally Curious, Globalmente Curioso in Portuguese. Instagram, there's Seu Amigo Gringo, that's in Portuguese, and Seth Kugel, Sethkugel. That's my
Sechi.
Seth Kugel. Yeah, it's Kugel, which is a little bit sort of dirty if you think about it.
That could be a little sensual, yeah.
Yeah, and that's my. If you put in Amigo Gringo, you'll find stuff everywhere. But either my name or Amigo Gringo, Twitter, Seth Kugel. I'm everywhere that you might expect, either under Seth Kugel or Amigo Gringo. The book you can find, on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever site sells American books. You can just put in my name or Rediscovering Travel, and it will be out in October, and I'm hoping there'll be a Brazilian edition.
Absolutely. Yes. Everyone read Seth's book, read more. It's good for practicing your English and learning how to travel. So thanks a lot, Seth. Anything else you want to add? Any ask from our followers? Any recommendations, words of wisdom?
No, just check us out and learn some English and find out that Americans are not as bad as you think we are.
No, some of us are pretty cool.
Yeah,
Most of us, in fact.
Some of us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Seth.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. Please check out all of Seth's work, Amigo Gringo, his new book, Rediscovering Travel, a guide for the globally curious. Super fascinating stuff. And if you want to support the show, the best things you can do are subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, wherever you listen to podcasts, and visit inglesnocru.com. Sign up for our mailing list to get the best tips on the internet, promotions, etc. I will see you guys tomorrow.